Oddly, no Meki, don't know why, not yet, but I'm sure that will all we'll know soon. I don't know why I'm freaking out, but that's all right. This is episode 683. It's the 13th of April, and I suppose I read. I'm Dave, and that would be Mackie, but he's not answering. I don't know why. He might not be home. Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's the home of fresh ideas. It's also the website. Buy some merchandise or donate if you like anything we say. Join us in the chat room and talk to us while we're on air. This is, like I said, show number 683. 683 shows. If Mackie were here, he would say 380 and 600. Let me just let the dog out. Letting the dog out. The dog's coming. Now I'm shutting my door so the dog can't come back in. Tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you miss Solaris's show, that's a shame, because it was an awesome show. She had Joanne Gadjuski from Witchcraft TV. Joanne is a clinical mental health counsellor specialising in trauma, PTSD, and crisis intervention. She also works with autistic and neurodivergent populations. She has been a magical practitioner for over 30 years. I'm going to go into the archives on the station and have a listen for myself. I missed it entirely. I was off running errands, just jumped into the chair with moments to spare. Look at that, that rhymed. I've still got a tank top on. Can you believe it? I'm getting messages, so maybe Mackie's telling me something. Is he telling me something? Let me have a look. Look and see. Nope, not at all. Hope he's able to join show. I'm sending him a message, question mark. And we'll see. I don't know who that was. It was close to Mr. Burns, but probably wasn't him. Now, you can access the station's archives, like I said, for free. Costs you nothing. You just have to type a password in, but you're presented with a password. You can either do it in your browser as a file download, or you can listen to it live in the browser, which is really cool. They've now added that functionality. Now, I'm broadcasting out of Dark and Jung Country. I cannot just landed. Okay, that's cool. Not a problem, Mackie. He's obviously just landed from somewhere or going to somewhere, as flight technology exists to be able to do that. I'm hoping that I can land a roll sooner than later, in order for me to be able to have the same excuse to not make our fine show in our 14th year, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Now, please, whatever platform you find this show on, except for the station's archives, but on one of our own platforms, please like, share, comment, and subscribe in some way. So like the video, do follow us so you become notified. And if it's on YouTube, you can hit the bell. We're trying to get our Rumble viewership up. We've got only about 1,000 people listen on YouTube. And if we don't, we were demonetized a long time ago. And we won't be able to get back to those heady days of earning any money at all from YouTube. Forget it. It's not going to happen. So, as an alternative, either Spotify, you can find us, and you can find us also on Rumble. Do that for me, for Mackie. Do it for the station. The more likes and more followers we have, the bigger we can build the station. And I'm actually on the admin team for the station as well. So look forward to some There's really cool things happening in that regard. Boy, what a time. Let me have a look. Hopefully the middle screen. Yep, middle screen works. Fantastic. I'm not sure if you know, but Australia is in an election cycle. We don't have an 18-month election cycle. We have a couple of weeks. From the date it's announced, there's, I think, 6 weeks or something like that. It's crazy how quickly it comes about when it does. It's rather quick. Now, I wanted to say that there are sweeteners now being advertised by the two parties, the two main parties. There's criticism from what we call as Teal. They're all the independents. There's criticism everywhere on the current government, and that's what they survive on. They survive on the cages, people falling out of these two-party cages because they've lost trust or whatever, the Teals can drum up, and hopefully they'll fall into their basket. We're all hopeless as individuals, as civilians. We're hopeless. We don't understand. This is politics by party. So you call it party politics. It's not individuals, though they continue to call me and ask me, surveyed. They ask, so who would you prefer as leader? I don't really care. I think and I always tell them this, I think the entire party should be behind the policies that they've advertised, that the policies they advertised are put into place, because that's why people voted for you. Anything else would warrant probably a felony, because you'd be lying to the public to get into power. If you won in a landslide, absolutely everything is approved. Whatever you said, doesn't matter on the campaign trail, that's fine. Just let's use the US as an example. The majority vote got Donald Trump in. Fantastic. Good on him. That's how politics is won, by winning. Here, we've got some sweeteners. So the first sweetener is Labor proposes. So we have Labor and Liberal. That is left and right in American politics, but they're kind of a little, like the line isn't parallel to the US's line, nor is it in England. It's maybe on a little bit of an angle, if that makes sense. So they're not entirely one-to-one, but the left people who are currently in, called Labor, without a U, Labor, says that they propose to let all first home boners, there you go, that's a Freudian slip, first home buyers purchase with 5% deposit. And you might go, oh, that's fantastic. What a champion act that is. It's only on newly built homes. That's a little caveat. I believe it's means tested. And there is no, what's it called? Lender's insurance? Homeowners, what's it called? It's called something else. Hang on, quickly scanning through it. It'll be available for homes valued all the way up to the average price. Aha, there you go. So you can't buy a house that's more expensive than the average? Really, to me, it's the whole plan here is just to get people onto the home owning platform ladder, right? Is that going to work? I'm not sure. They've also said those people who qualify also get $1,000 tax deduction. Interesting. They say that it'll guarantee that everyone can opt for an automatic tax deduction on their work expenses. Okay, so no paperwork, no box of receipts, no scrolling through your online banking. Just tick the box and your returns ready to go every year. I think it's only for 4 years. That's interesting. All right. The housing that is built today is not affordable They said blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to find the statement that they put in here. The 5% deposit guarantee would allow thousands of Australians to sidestep the traditional 20% hurdle, potentially slashing years off the time it takes to save for a home. So when a young person says 5% deposit, my government, he says, will guarantee the rest with their bank. Now that's very funny that they say that, because it is only opened to first home buyers. I think there's already a scheme in place. It's really not much to do with that except for just change one number on it. Anyway, I think the most important here, oh that's right, avoiding lender's mortgage insurance. So if you if you were to buy a property with 10% only, or 5% for that matter, your ability to repay the loan might be in question, and therefore you've got to pay for the lender's mortgage insurance that covers for you if you default. That's really interesting. I think in this, the thing that's important is, how is the bank going to trust these people? That's a good point. For me, that makes the most sense. That there must be something there. Now, from what I understand about the Great Reset, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So why is a government who is very keen to get people on the property ladder attempting to own something? It'll take 30 years. Why is that? Now, from what I can see, and what I predict is really the truth here, and I don't have the proof to show you on screen, but my guess is that the changes to the loans for new houses are connected in some way with the government also being a holder of that title. And it's only for homeowners, only for the new houses, not for existing ones. I know the government's committed, they said, to $10 billion to only make 100,000 houses. 100,000. That's not very many. We have 300,000 people coming in every year, which is crazy, that we shouldn't have that many anyway. It's kind of like America, I suppose, an influx of people coming in. I think it should be, and this is legit people coming in. They've just upped the ante on that, but that doesn't include the foreign students, which is the lifeblood of our education system apparently, because that pays for the entire running of our education system. But our people in Australia, our Australians, still need to pay for their education. It's not free. It could be free. They should make it free. If you're a citizen, they should make all education free. Private schools, free. Right. That's up to their bag. Right. They can do whatever they want. Did you know private schools in Australia earn more from the government as benefits, I suppose, to the operation? They get more money than the private schools who can't charge. Huh. The whole thing's a scam. Anyway, if it were true that the government was a part title owner of a new house, no wonder they want more and more people in some way to be able to get into the property ladder. However, here's something else. So the opposition to this is Australia's right, has thrown a sweetener in, the government's all about gifting the taxpayer something to vote for that party because it'll make sense to them. Not so much. I tell you, my 18-year-old daughter couldn't care less. One, about voting, but she has to. Number two, about owning anything. As long as she has internet, I think she's fine. Whatever it is. Who cares? Right? So, the coalition has decided what they're going to do. And we call it the coalition. This is the Liberal Party. They're the right side of politics here. And their coalition is with another party called the Nationals. So the Liberals and Nationals, or we call it LNP, not liquid petroleum gas or LPG, it's LNP, Liberal National Party. Their coalition used to be in competition with the left side and the Greens, is how that used to work. But if the LNP lost its coalition, it would never, ever get into power. It would be impossible for them to ever get into power. New Schwabenland, yeah. So what they've done is the coalition has unveiled plans to let the first home buyers deduct mortgage payments from taxes, like in the US. I like that idea. I prefer that, where they've got to save up the entire amount, but then they can actually, I think it's only for the first, how many years do they get to do it? Oh, there's so many limitations. They said only it's got to be newly built home, and they can deduct interest payments on up to $650 of their title value. But in Sydney, for instance, there might be a home. I think the entry level home is $1.5 million, and you've got to knock it down because it's riddled with termites. And then you bought the house for free, you get the land. You bought the land, you get the house for free. It also says the policy would mean that a family on an average income would be around $11,000 a year better off, because they'd be able to get that back on tax. You still have got to pay it, but then they said that could be worth, $55,000. They've just times 11,000 by 5. Right, that's all they're really doing. But there was means testing. It says average wage, blah blah blah. I did see there was some limitations around it. Oh, it would also be means tested at $175 for singles a year, that is, or a couple at $250,000. That's their earnings for the year. Now, if you exceed that, you're not able to do this. It's only for the people on 175 or less as singles, or 250,000 or less for couples. So you'd really be thinking about doing this as an individual, buying a house as an individual, not as a couple. But yeah, 250. Oh boy, really? So I like the idea, to be honest with you. I like kind of both of them, but this one would be better. But it should be expanded to every single mortgage payer, that you could deduct the interest from your tax. You'd still have to pay the capital. You wouldn't get the capital as a tax deduction. It would only be the interest. But who knows? Who knows what the future has? And I don't know which party is more likely to win this election. There's a lot of complaint for the Teals and the advertising that they're running, which you find hard pressed to locate on the mainstream media. But I've seen some ads already, and it's all about the year of the last 3 years of discontent, because our elections only last for 3 years and you have another one. It's to be honest, it's not enough to do anything. So the first year, they do some of the things that they were voted in for, and then they do what they want, and then they start sweeteners again for the next election. If whichever party, if they were able to have a 10-year seat, that's a long time. It really is a long time. And would it be viable? I don't know. I don't know if that would work for anybody, because imagine how badly you could impact a country with 10 years holding the wheel. That's just crazy. But our government's short-term 3-year term is so mild that you can do one or two things, and then you can, for the whole time, you can still blame the prior people, and everyone seems to be just fine with that. It's nuts. It really is crazy. Talking about home ownership, I found a news story here, and it's so relative to wherever we are in the world. But there is a tourism boom in Japan that's now forcing home ownership to be a dream for the Japanese. So Nisiko's famous ski resorts have helped increase tourism, which is fantastic. Woo! But that's massively increased the price of homes and rent for the locals. This was only a story from 10 hours ago. So without saying any more, you can read the story. You can find the headlines yourself on the website for yourself. It's very interesting that this is what's happened there. We know in Australia that foreign home ownership has made the prices of homes go up. We know that negatively gearing your second house. So let's run a scenario. You've bought a house and you said, let's pretend you paid it off. Don't know how, but you did. You paid it off. It's all good. Then you realize, I've got a lot of equity in my house. What I can do is I can get an interest-only loan on a second property, rent it out, and that interest should be payable by the rent. Then anything, because the government did this, right? They put these rules in place. And then any improvement you make to the house as an investment property of your own, you can then deduct that from your taxable income against the rent. Any improvements to the house, any maintenance, it all becomes a tax deduction because now you're running like a business. It's run like a business. And then, because now you've got two properties, even though you haven't paid 1 single cent off the capital of that loan to buy that second house, you can, as long as someone's in that house as a rental, you can borrow again. Let's go again. You can end up with a string of rental incomes and sitting on a huge potential. If you keep that house, I don't know the numbers anymore, and I'm not a financial expert. I'm going to put some warnings on the screen. I'm not providing any financial advice, and I'm certainly not encouraging anyone to do it. I'm not in a position to do it, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if you were to operate a string of them, you can do some interesting things. There used to be a capital gains tax that was applicable, I think after 10 years or something. I think they've reduced that amount of time now that you must own the house, still paying, the bank owns it, you're on the title, and you've got someone in there paying rent to you to pay the mortgage off. House values every 10 years, although thereabouts in Australia, double. We've had some sticking points along the way, not so terrible, but not great if you wanted to do this. but it's meant that the house prices haven't entirely doubled every 10 years. But that's usually the case. So we've gone through, the GFC. In the last 20 years, we've had a lot of very difficult times financially to get through, and I don't think we've seen anywhere near those kind of numbers. But what you could do, you would charge capital gains tax on the difference. And now there's a way, as long as you hold on to it for a certain amount of time, you can then sell it at some point in the future and not have to pay capital gains because you've owned it long enough. That's really good. Now, it's not the potential value, it is the actual value at sale. So if you happen to live long enough to own enough of these properties and they're financial for you, if you've been able to charge more rent than the mortgage payments, you can either take that as profit, or you can put it back into improvement, which is also tax deductible, or you could put it back to the capital. You could be paying more on the mortgage and reducing the capital. You could actually pay a whole bunch of houses off. And you've got land tax, which is deductible on investment properties, a whole bunch of things. Once again, I am not providing financial advice or property advice, just stating this. Now, when the government introduced being able to have this style of property lending in order to create a portfolio from thin air, to be honest with you, they did it for themselves, owning strings of properties. Good for them too, right? And you end up having to earn so much that you can, and have so much effort in managing it all, that you need a property manager, and their fees are tax deductible as well. So you could, once you get a large enough portfolio of properties, then voila, you're kind of in a really good place. If you hold them long enough and you decide to retire, you could sell either all of them off or keep a couple, selling a bunch of them, paying off the other mortgages that you have in total, and then just sitting on the rental income for yourself. That'd be great. If someone told me that you could do this a long time ago, I would have done it. I had a friend of mine who did it, 8 years ago or something. They used their superannuation, and their 401k if you're in the US. And what they were able to achieve was, it's basically having like a concrete bubble around your 401k or your superannuation balance, but you've determined that you're going to manage it yourself. So you're going to have to get a license. There's a paperwork, and then it may not be license, it's approval, and then you can buy a property like this just with that money at all, or using it as leverage, and then that stays wholly within your superannuation fund. You can't touch it. It can't break the barrier between you and it. That entity is its own entity, and when you've then require it after a certain age, then you can get access to it, because you kind of move into that bubble, if that makes sense. It's metaphorically, there's no bubble, but then it makes a lot more sense to be able to self-manage your super, earn basically like 100% over 10 years on its value. The relative charge or the cost that you can rent out a property for over time goes up anyway. Rents aren't getting cheaper. There's no way you'll find a rent like we used to have to pay when I first moved out of home, which was $150 a week or something like that. It's not a chance. I forget how much, it's like $900 a week or some crazy numbers, which, to be honest, is more than my mortgage cost. My whole mortgage. I think it's $3,000 a month or something. So the poor people, I don't mean poor, I mean the people who are suffering the most are paying a lot of rent on a property that they don't own, and the money's going to someone else, not themselves. It's only a one-way trip. It goes into their wallet and goes straight out to all of their, either, all the services, or to the property or to food and entertainment, all those things. It's just a one-way trip. It's another way of being able to get into someone else's pocket. That's what that is, right there. So if you can do that, and that's what the government made. But the same as doing this negative gearing policy, we saw a sharp rise in housing costs. So the same as the tourist boom causing Japanese not to be able to afford houses in their local area, and I'd say particularly around the ski resorts, but the story doesn't boil it down too much. We've done the very same thing. The negative gearing has caused housing to become unbelievably expensive. It's said that any person growing up anywhere will not be able to afford the house that they lived in. Because by the time they get to the age of being able to buy a house, it's so unreasonably expensive that you will never be able to own it. Isn't that crazy? In America, I know it's different. The house costs in America, because there's so many houses that are unoccupied. That's good. I like that. I like the overabundance of housing in order to keep the price level or thereabouts. And the way to make money in America on flipping houses is to buy the most terrible one and do it up. Right? Always buy the worst house in the best street. That way you can maximize your return on your investment, on your improvements. I don't mind that. That's really good. You're just bringing up the most dilapidated house up to the level of the other ones in the street. In America, if you decide you don't want to live in the house you're in, you can move out and mail the keys back to the bank. That's their problem now. In Australia, you're still legally responsible for that house, even if you mailed the keys back to the bank. They'll just go, well, for some reason the keys have turned up here. Can we send them to the owner? Let's get in touch with the owner because they still owe their mortgage payments and now they're delinquent. And we've got their keys. So can we give it back to them? Because can we put someone onto that? So here you really are legally signing up to the responsibility to pay those payments, and there is no back out. There isn't a way out of that. And that's of great disappointment to me. I wanted to say something about I'm tacking here. If you're a boatie, you know what I mean. Tacking. I'm pivoting now to Donald Trump and his tariffs. I am of the belief that you don't call every microsecond of Trump's words and actions. Don't call them out. Wait a week. Wait 2 weeks. And watch what happens as a result of everything he does and says. Because then you get I don't know, you get a bigger picture of what's happening. I remember that the reciprocal tariffs were half of what the country was charging the US. Half. I saw the big banner he held up. He held up the posterized version of his plan. And, China was, I think, 67 or something, and he was going to charge them half of that. 30 something or other, right? 32%. And now it's 145%. All the countries didn't have their tariffs applied to them. All the 10%ers only were meant to be from 2 days ago, but then all the tariffs now are on hold. Everybody was lining up to talk with the president. Can we negotiate? Yeah, you can. Just formally queue. We'll deal with you one by one. Let's talk about your tariffs on us, or the reason why you're not buying our stuff. Good point to make from America's point of view. But when I was sitting today, I was sitting watching some news, and I realized that we're this kingdom styled country diplomacy. It's more like kingdoms. It's not empire, it's kingdom. The empire is you keep expanding your footprint and envelop all of the countries that you want their resources, and therefore you don't really have to pay for them. You've conquered the country, it's your country now, old school. And now those goods come back to the main country. Those provinces deal with hyperinflation as a result, where the locals can no longer afford. They used to be able to afford it, whatever it is that they were making, and now they're exporting 100% of what they make to the empire, the empire's head office, let's say. So that is the old style of doing it. Now, well, gentleman's diplomacy has gone. It's certainly gone now. But the style that we used to have for a long time, since World War II, is dead and or dying. The way that I see that this is now turned is as kingdoms, like I see 4 of them, really. You know, Russia, China, India, and the US. The rest of us, we've got whatever we've got, and that's the end of that. If it's to the benefit of one of those 4, they'll be nice to you and want something in return. They'll try to negotiate something, give you something. Like I said, sweeteners, like your governments do to you. They're offering all sorts of things to try and make it better. In the US's case, in Trump's case, a very good conversation starter is, we're going to start charging you some ridiculous things. Your people won't be exporting to us anymore, because the fees that we'll charge our own people to buy your things will make them too expensive. The price tags will be too high. We won't want your stuff anymore. I nearly swore. We won't want your things. So, let's have a conversation. People call it the art of the deal. I'm not sure. It's just an open threat. That'll get people talking. Is it schoolyard politics? Well, I never saw any of that. There was never tariffs mentioned when I went to school. Just bullies who decided they ran the school. Not apologetic bullies, but they will live in their own problems. In the bully's case that was dealing with me on day 0 of my high school, abuse from the care that he was in. He was in a children's home. That was terrible. I really feel sorry for him. Daryl, if you ever look my name up and you find this channel, I'm with you, man. I understand. Could not have been good. That's if he's still alive. They've now demolished the entire children's home, and it's now a housing estate. But I'm sure, I would be 100% sure that I think there were grave sites there at the back of the children's home. And who knows what those poor kids went through. It'd be like building on a Indian burial site. To be honest, the poor kids, right? Anyway, so the kind of diplomacy we're seeing right now is to kind of level up the US to match those big three of India, China, and Russia. That's what I see. At least put those four countries into one group, and the rest of the planet is not them. The rest of us have to bow and be thankful for what we get. And if we're good to the US, we're like financially good, then we'll get something in return. Free trade is interesting. It really is. I wish we had it. The crazy increase in tariffs to China from the US. I've heard the guy from Shark Tank, I think, I've heard him talking about 400% would be better, but maybe that's not going far enough, because in his words, there's a video, and I'm not going to bother playing it. There's a video, I should do a reaction video to it or something, but there's a video that he says he's being interviewed, and I don't know when it was, but it must be after the tariffs were introduced, because he was talking about, I don't believe the tariffs are nearly high enough, because in his words, China has stolen IP from the US, makes inferior products and sells it to us much cheaper than we can make it, but it's stolen. And he said you can't pursue it, you can't litigate against China. There's not I forget what it's called legally, the legal stance you can have between two countries where you can do that. I know India only had, it was claimed back in the day, back in the 90s, one license of Windows 98, and they all shared it. Because in those days you just typed it in. So I'm not a hater of politics. I'm not. I think it could be done better, and if we can move our humans out of it, then at least we wouldn't have any known bias. We wouldn't have the corruption, hopefully. But prove me wrong. Maybe the AI will only do what it wants for itself if we were to replace humans in politics with AI. Maybe at that point, Skynet's alive and well, and it was all her own mistake. So it's clear in that list of countries that provide the US anything, and the US provides them something, whoever it was on that list. It's clear who, the big boy pants wearing person is. In the kingdom, that's how I see it. I'm not going to complain about it, but rather just knowing the extreme left, extreme right, knowing where the middle should be between the two. That's where I attempt to operate from, being able to launch comments at both sides. Not hatred. Don't call for any hate. I'm putting my little warning screen back up again. Those familiar with the show will recognize that this is the reason for our existence, is to attempt to not be let's use that John Cleese video, for example. If you haven't seen it, it's making the rounds again. It's pertinent to what we're talking about. And it is, if you, wherever you are in the political scale, and you're not aligned with anyone in particular, but you find that you're attracted to the left or the extremist left, you'll end up in an echo chamber where you have an approved, this is his words, not mine. It's all John Cleese's bit from like the 70s, I think. There's a list of approved people to hate. So you can echo any hatred on that approved list of people and you'll be a member of that extremist left group. And the right has there's the same group on the right with their list of approved people to hate. And since people like to group together, it's a perfect way of being able to group people together, and they feel like they joined willingly because suddenly I found my people who it doesn't matter which side you're on. And you could claim the same thing with all of those terrorist groups. They have an approved list of people to hate, and if in your life your experiences led you towards them, I'm not suggesting or condoning violence in any way, shape or form. I hate it. Remember the soapbox, ballot box, ammo box is what Jim Mars used to say. And I think there's a lot of soapbox out there, and we should be listening to that. It should be a very hard leap is the next step, and then even further leap exponentially to the last one. Who is that in the chat room? Let me just scroll up. Conduct detrimental. Lovely commentary there. Most hate derives out of fear. F-E-A-R. If you can break that down, that'd be great. But yes, fear is strong in this one. Fear is it's not real. Danger is real, but fear isn't. That's also used. It's from a movie, and it's also used. It's from a book, but it's used as one of the bumpers on Revolution Radio. The bumper is important. It's advertising someone's show. I like it. I really do like it. But what is it that allows people to then, like I'm looking at those people on the left who are destroying by violent protests, which I don't agree with at all, violent protest of Elon Musk. It's crazy destroying Teslas. It's crazy. He doesn't own a majority of the company anymore. So, I don't know. There are people who are willing to abandon everything they used to stand for in the middle of politics, where you weren't really aligned to anyone, but you did it because you liked their policy. And it does come down to policy. It should always come down to the policies of the party, not the individuals, not their personalities, not what they say from day to day, how they act. Are they good people? Are they good? And do they have a bunch of traits that you admire? Do you wish that, and this is a concept that very few people have, because a lot of people are too self-strong in their own minds. Who the hell cares what people think about me? That's wrong. It's a very bad place to start from if you have a conversation with anybody. I'm under the belief that we should be continually improving ourselves, ironing out all the wrinkles, not ending up like a hobo under a bridge with a shopping trolley of all of the things they've collected along the way. And you could call that baggage if you wanted to, but if it's not going to be intact bags when you end up living under a bridge smelling like, a cattle ranch because you urinate on yourself all the time. Or other people do it, I don't know. When you've got to that point, how could you have changed it and go back in time to that first time that led you down that path? What can you have done? My goal in life is to appear to others as exhibiting those strengths that I admire in a very, very few select amount of people. But the list is long. Honest, dependable, trustworthy. All those positive traits. I want to appear intelligent. I want to appear I'm not quite as well read as Meki. He reads so much, and I don't have any time for any of that. My life is hard enough as it is, without putting that much time into reading someone else's work. I'll watch a movie from time to time, and that's pretty much where my life goes. But I examine what there is, see what I could have done better, how can I do it better next time, and not living in the past. Keep moving forward and understanding where the better place is in a decision. Which one is the better one? Which one has the most benefit for the most people? These are filters that you must do on everything that you do. If you're pushing I'm going to say this for the American audience. If you're pushing a shopping cart down an aisle in a market, and there's someone who isn't obeying the same left-right part of the street as you're driving. So in America, I can imagine pushing your shopping cart down the right-hand side of a wide aisle. In Australia, we drive on the left-hand side, so it would be the left-hand side of a wide aisle. Occasionally, you're going to come up to people who are stationary, examining stuff that's on the shelves, doing some math in their head, reading the labels, maybe reading the packets, trying to determine, is this right for me? That's fine. I can go around those, like I can a parked car. But if there's two people who are belligerent enough to not give way to the other person in a shopping cart, where you can barely damage it at all by colliding with another one. No noticeable damage could occur at 1 mile an hour, and yet you both refuse to move. Who is the person, I'm putting my hand up in advance, who's the person who's more likely to already recognize that a long way back and let the other person have the right of way? If that's not you, if you're the person who's just going to burst through, these stupid people are in my way, and then give people death stares, are you the right person for society? We do share this darn thing with others. We don't do it in our cars. Well, some people do it now. I watch a lot of dash cams. A lot of people do it in their cars. But they are personally responsible for the damage that you inflict on yours and the other person's car. In my example, you're only responsible for the emotional state of the other person that you're about to encounter. And if you can't pay happiness forward, I wish you could find somewhere else to live. And there's the music. Do like, share, comment, and follow or subscribe, depending on the platform. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about, and he says it like there's someone else here, we're going to be talking about Mind Control Part 6. So stay tuned. The bumper's really small. It's going to start a brand new video for the next hour. In the meantime, stay tuned.